went, whoa. And I was like, that is not something that you want to hear when you're laying there. You have a
You
sheet.
can't see anything.
You can't see anything. And I'm like, what just happened? Don't say whoa. And he's calling people over before he, hey,
Oh
come here.
my
He's bringing this
gosh.
nurse over. Look at this. Look at this.
Hi friends, welcome to the Infertility Club. I am so excited for today's special guest, Celeste. She is amazing. I met her at my sister's bunco group, and my sister and Celeste are really awesome friends. And hearing a bit about her fertility journey and everything she's experienced and gone through, it really inspired me in my own journey. And I am so grateful she is here and willing to talk with us and share her story. Thank you so much, Celeste.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, this is awesome. We all struggle, I think, in one way or another with motherhood.
Yeah.
And I think if my story can help someone, then that's what we want. So, anyways.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's go ahead and dive right into it.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your journey to motherhood. What does that look like for you?
Well, it was definitely hard, and I think motherhood, kind of we talked about, motherhood starts earlier than, the road to motherhood starts earlier.
Yeah, it does.
And what I didn't realize when I was getting pregnant was that my problems as a teenager manifested in pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I had really, really hard cycles from really young. My first one, I remember just thinking, what is happening to me? I am so sick. And it continued until I got pregnant. And then I had a hard time getting pregnant. And this was all the uterus telling me it needed help.
Yeah.
The cramping, the cycles. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know how to help my uterus because we weren't really taught that.
Oh, totally. I feel like it's not ever really in the education system or learned about. And yeah, I've had horrible periods my whole life too. And it's like, I just thought it was something I had to deal with and live with.
Yeah. And that's kind of, my mom's like, oh yeah, sorry. And the only idea that the doctors gave was, well, we can put her on birth control.
Yeah.
And my mom never did. She was like, no, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I was like, I don't want to have to take a pill every day.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it.
Yes.
And, afterwards they had told me after I had kids, they're like, you know what? With what we've learned about your uterus, we're really glad you never got on birth control because you might not have ever been able to get pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, and that kind of goes into skipping ahead when they found out that I had half a uterus. And they're like, you're lucky you even got pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
So, and they're like, if you would have been on birth control, it really would have messed you up.
Totally.
So
they just didn't have enough information. Yeah.
And not everybody, but I think a lot of the my generation, that was the only thing they offered. And still that's what they offer for bad cramps is birth control. And a lot of the people that do have problems, not all, because I had a hard time and I wasn't on birth control. But they're like, yeah, I was on birth control, for my cramps.
Yeah.
And it just shut down their hormones and messed them up and their body just didn't know how to recoup.
Totally.
So,
well, I remember going in for my periods and the doctor, I had asked him, I was like, what can I do? Because these periods it's so heavy. It hurts. I'm out a couple days of the week and, it was just so painful and it still is, but I'm excited to try some things that Celeste shared. So hang tight for those because I'm super excited. But yeah, but it's interesting. I remember the doctor telling me like, oh, why don't you go on Vicodin or something like that? I'm like, you're prescribing a 16-year-old Vicodin? No, like I'm not going this route. That doesn't seem like something I want to do at this age. And so, yeah it's interesting.
It's tough. Because you want to be a normal teenager or you want to be a normal mom, and you're just like, hey, I have kids and my whole body's shutting down for a couple of days every cycle.
Totally.
And then everyone's just waiting to get to menopause. And then when you do get to menopause, you're like, dang it, this is not any fun,
Yeah.
I'm not in menopause. But, I'm like, you hear the stories of like hot flashes and it's all like just a continuation of the body saying, I don't have what it needs. I don't have the building blocks to do my thing.
Yeah.
Which is getting ready to be a mother.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, take us through your first pregnancy and what did that look like for you?
Well, it took me a while to get pregnant. It took us a year. We couldn't afford any type of stuff. So with God's help, we got pregnant.
It's amazing.
And it was a really hard pregnancy, actually. We didn't know anything at the time. And my stomach was, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and thinking that I was being stabbed in the stomach. I would have stabbing pain, and I would wake up screaming. And they didn't know what to do with that. They're like, we can give you something for your stomach. I would just have, like, my stomach wasn't digesting. You know, as my hormones would go up with the progesterone, I was just in a lot of pain. And I just laid on the couch most of the time, just being so sick.
Yeah.
And then about, you know, in the 20 weeks, you know, when they say it starts to wear off, it started to wear off, and I started to feel pretty normal.
Okay.
And then, well, that was in the beginning of the 20, at the end of the 20 weeks, my legs started to swell. And I had, like, I had crazy swelling, which, you know, women get towards the last couple weeks of pregnancy. And what I didn't know was I was in the last couple weeks of my pregnancy.
Oh my goodness.
So he calls his parents, and they come and get me, and they take me to the hospital, and my mother-in-law waits for me until he gets there. And they started the magnesium. Wow. And then it was just like a series of crazy events. They gave me too much magnesium, and they're like, I couldn't even move my face because the magnesium had gone into my face. Gosh. And usually it's just supposed to stop your cramping, because they wanted they were trying to stop my uterus from contracting until the steroid had its 24 hours. Okay. And then they were going to give me another shot, and then after that point, so they were trying to stop and not give the steroid a chance to help the baby's lungs. Yeah. And they overdid it. I couldn't move. I was lisping. I'm like, guys, I can't even talk. Even my tongue won't move. And the lady's like, and then finally I got a nurse. I was like, okay, all right, you know what? We need to take it down a little bit on the magnesium. I'm like, thank you, because I can't move any of my muscles, including my face muscles. She's like, yeah, it shouldn't be affecting those. It did. So they took me off. We reached our point, and they took me off the magnesium. And they said, sometimes at this point, you won't go back into labor, and we'll keep you in the hospital for a while and let the baby keep growing. Okay. And I remember they took me in, and they said, you know what? Every day and the baby stays in the stomach is about what a week we can do in the hospital. Oh, and so they said, we want to keep the baby in as long as we can. And so I was like, okay, we're going to stay here. And he's like, hopefully you'll stay here in the hospital a couple weeks. I was like, okay. It didn't happen that night. I went back into labor. Oh my goodness. And I kept telling the lady I was in labor, and she's like, no, honey, you're good. And I'm like, no, like, well, we need to go right now. And she's like, well, the baby's breached, so you're going to have to do a C-section. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And I said, no, like, the baby's coming right now. And she just kept talking me out of it. I'm like, look, I can feel pressure, and the baby's coming. So she's like, what? So she called the doctor in, and then they rolled me in right away, and it was like this emergency thing. And then I was super stressed because the way they were panicking. Yeah, yeah. And then they did the C-section, and they pulled the baby out, and I heard one little ee, and then they took him out of the room.
Oh my goodness, right away.
And then my husband said, honey, where do I go? And I said, well, he's all alone. Go with him. He knows your voice. And then I sat in a room, heavily medicated and totally emotional. And I'm like, is my baby okay? Oh my gosh, how like scary. Nobody's told me anything. And then they moved me into a new room, and they just started typing, and they're just entering the information about what happened in the surgery. Yeah. And I'm just letting here, just thinking, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. Yeah. And all I could hear was just click, 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 and it was just traumatic. Yeah. And then later they finally come in, and they're like, your baby's okay. I'm like, you could have told me earlier. Finally. Finally, and like it was just very cold and dark and lonely in that room. And that was probably the worst room I've ever been in my life. And it wasn't the room, it was just the process.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So they didn't find out from there. So that pregnancy goes, we spent 2 months in the NICU. Wow. And he kept growing. And we went through all the part, where we're trying to get him to eat, and we're trying to get him to breastfeed, and we're trying to get him to breathe on his own. And there were ups and downs, and it was tough.
Oh, I believe it.
My milk wouldn't come in, so I was power pumping, trying to do it every 2 hours. And we got it. We never had to put him on formula because I was really against formula.
Okay. Yeah, and you're like, I want to do this.
I was like, my body's going to do it, and we barely made it. My husband sometimes, because usually you would pump, we had to go home at night. Okay. And you'd pump while you were gone, and then you'd bring it into the hospital. But we usually didn't have enough, so my husband would have to take whatever I pumped while I slept. He'd run it to the hospital so the baby would have food.
Oh.
And so he was always running. So he was doing a good job.
Sounds like you guys made a good team.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I'm sure that was exhausting.
It was. So, and then there's, did you spend time in the NICU?
No, we lucked out and did not.
That's
but
right.
I've
You had little
heard
girls.
I did. I had 2 little girls at 37 weeks. So yeah, we lucked out there.
Yeah, I remember all the little girls going home. And and he was the boy, and they're like, their lungs don't develop as fast. And I remember just thinking, this isn't fair.
Yeah. Oh
and all the girls would go home, and you're just watching them leave, and you're just staying, but he made it. And he is a big tough guy now that plays flag football.
I just met him. He's darling. He's so cute.
He asked if he could be the official photo bomber.
He did. He helped us get all set up. It was so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh,
so,
what a journey.
And those are all different for different moms that actually go through the NICU. We had to, they'll know all the different mile markers that you have to hit. And that was tough.
Yeah.
And I think prayer is the only way that I definitely made that through, because I would just wake up as early as I could, and we sat there and we would stay until sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Just trying to stay with your baby. I was lucky in the way, speaking of the perfect storm, is that he was my first. And so I didn't have any babies waiting home for me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to split my time. I just lived at the hospital.
Got to be there.
So I got to be with them. Yeah.
Wow.
So
with that experience, how did that feel, or because I know you wanted more kids, was that hard were you scared wanting to get pregnant again?
No,
or
not at the time.
Yeah.
I just thought it was some fluke thing. And you hear about these runners that beat, the last record.
Yeah, yeah.
And they say, it's because nobody ever told them they couldn't. And nobody ever told me I couldn't. And so I'm so glad. I'm so glad after my first one I didn't know that I had a half a uterus. Because otherwise I think I would have thought maybe I can't do this again. And that was, the half uterus was a spoiler alert, because I didn't know until my second one. And I just knew that there was a problem. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out for my second, I was like, I'm going to take red raspberry leaf.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did some. And I got pregnant with our second pretty quick. Once my body figured it out. You hear about that with some people.
Yeah.
They're like, they can't get pregnant. And then I have a friend, and she couldn't get pregnant for years. And then she got pregnant with so in a row. She was like, I have to tie my tubes because I can't stop getting pregnant.
Oh,
like her body figured it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's sometimes what it did. But my body figured it out. And I got pregnant pretty fast. I mean, they were 18 months apart. And I wasn't expecting that. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go on red raspberry leaf. And
were you taking it every day?
Yeah. Yeah, I was, but I didn't know what the problem was yet. And so I just kind of did a few capsules.
Okay.
I just got some capsules online.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to take some of this. And sometimes I would drink red raspberry leaf tea. And I did fine. But she came early again. But she was a girl, so she got to come home. Her lungs were developed. She came at 36 weeks.
36, okay.
Yeah, so it got me a little farther along. And this time, again, my water broke. I went in. This time my doctor was there, and he's like, oh, you know what, baby's breech again. It never flipped. We're going to do a C-section. And I was like, no, we were going to do a VBAC.
Yeah.
I don't want another C-section. So we ended up doing another C-section. And the nurse midwife that was on call, she told the doctor, she's like, can you find out why she keeps having this problem? And why we keep... And so he said, okay. So he actually pulled out the uterus and saw that I had a unicornic uterus.
Pulled it out.
He pulled it out, and he went, whoa! And I was like, that is not something that you want to hear when you're laying there. You have a sheet.
You can't see anything.
You can't see anything. And I'm like, what just happened? Don't say whoa. He's like, oh my goodness, girl. And he's like, and he's calling people over before he, hey, come here. He's bringing listeners over. Look at this. And I was like, what in the world? And he calls my husband around. Come look at your wife's uterus. And I'm like, what? Why is my uterus out? Aren't you supposed to keep that in?
Oh my gosh.
And he calls me over. He's like, honey, you have a unicorn uterus. What?
Yeah.
And he's like, your uterus has one horn. You only produced the right side, and you have one ovary. So just the right side. He's like, you never develop. And he's like, I've only seen this in textbooks. You don't have the left side. So you run out of space, and your babies come early.
Wow.
And it's like, okay. So, like I said, she came home with us, and everything was good for her.
That's amazing.
She was little.
Yeah. 36 weeks, you said?
She was 36 weeks.
Okay.
She was 5 pounds, like 2 ounces.
Yeah.
But then she went, they would lose a little bit of weight, and I was like, man, she's so little.
Uh-huh. Oh, I know.
When my husband,
so tiny.
yeah, they are tiny. And so anyway, so that was an interesting experience. And I was like, okay, now I know what the problem is. So I was like, I started taking red raspberry leaf right away.
Okay, awesome.
And I started taking a lot. I'm like, apparently my uterus does need help. And I'm not a doctor. Is this where we say that?
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. And this was my journey. This is my journey, and this is what worked for me. Because red raspberry leaf says don't take when pregnant or nursing. Vitamin C says don't take pregnant when nursing. Vitamin D, consult a doctor before you take this. Every vitamin, we should have it on our lettuce. You know, like if they had packaging, it would probably say don't eat unless you talk to a doctor first.
Talk to a doctor.
Because everyone's nervous because you're bringing a life into the world, so everyone's nervous. And they don't want to take the wrong thing, and they don't want to get blamed for like me going into labor early. You know, oh, I took this supplement. Well, I wasn't taking that supplement at the time with my first one. So I went, 6 more weeks by taking just some red raspberry leaf. So I'm like, we're going to do this on the next one. We're going to take a lot. So I started doing research. And I started finding all these people who were able to solve their problems with their cycles.
Wow.
And I was like, I never did this for my cycle. People who, had so many blood clots, people that, went anemic because they lost so much blood.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this could help me back then when I was before. Anyways, and I started finding out, I started doing a lot of research, and I found out, actually, I started doing, and I started doing nettle.
Okay, nettle.
Oats.
Okay.
Raspberry leaf, and alfalfa.
Wow.
And those I found out, if you think of oat, like taking an oat bath, and how much that, it's good for the skin.
Yeah.
So if you're building skin, I started finding out that the nettle helped with your iron and your nutrients, and the oats helped with the building blocks of the skin and for the baby.
Oh, interesting.
And
that's so cool.
and for your own body as you're taking it, because the skin is stretching.
Yeah.
And then you have the red raspberry leaf, which I was already taking, and then the alfalfa, which is super high in all sorts of vitamins, minerals.
Wow, that's really cool.
And then after I was done having all my 4 kids, I found out they actually have a tea called Nora tea.
Nora tea.
I made it myself. I just ordered all the stuff and I put it in a container, and it's Nora. So it represents the nettle, the oats, raspberry leaf, and alfalfa.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I took it, and I took my red raspberry leaf capsules, and I took the tea. I made this tea, and I would drink it all the time. And it got me to full term with a half a uterus.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
It is. It was.
It's really incredible.
Having a fully ready baby that was ready to be out in the world was amazing.
That is. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Especially when you've experienced
it's the black and white.
But yeah.
It was awesome. Because the other ones, they slept all the time. My daughter, I kept having a hard time to get her to wake up because she was like, I'm supposed to be in the tummy for another month.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to wake her up to eat, and she just kept sleeping and sleeping and sleeping, and she just wasn't ready. And again, my milk supply wasn't ready. Like my hormone, everything was just off, and so we ended up getting goats to help.
Oh yeah. Like a goat.
Because I still didn't want the formula, because I just found out like it wasn't nutrient enough.
Yeah.
And goats are the next best thing as far as they have the same type of.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love it. So did you actually, you got goat's milk, or did you get goats and milk them type of thing?
So we got goats.
That is awesome.
We became goat farmers overnight with my son.
I love it.
I was like, I can't produce the milk, and so something's got to. And baby goats are born between 4 and 8 pounds.
Okay.
And a human baby is born between.
Yeah.
My daughter was 4 to 8, and you can get some bigger, you can get some smaller, and the protein content is around the same, and it's the closest thing to woman's breast milk
Yeah.
in the animal kingdom that there is.
That's pretty cool.
And when you look at formula, the nutrient contents is just so low because they just put it together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where's all this other stuff that the baby needs? So I went down and looked up Dr. Wallach.
Okay.
And he talked about minerals and like what babies need. And anyways, you have to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it doesn't have enough. Formula doesn't have enough nutrients to like, the building blocks for a baby.
Yeah.
To build the human body. And he goes through and talks about all the different foods that have it, and like the baby needs the breast milk because what you eat in the body creates it for him. And I couldn't create it, so we did it with goats.
That is so great. I love the story so much because there's a couple reasons I love it. I love that you took the time to research and find something that felt good and comfortable and what you guys were wanting, and then you executed it. Like, that's awesome, because I feel like there's, sometimes I'll be researching things and be like, oh, that would be cool, or I'd like to do that, but like, you actually did it, which is amazing. I love that. Like, I love it. It's pretty cool.
Well, it was tough because my husband, he still doesn't want to be a goat farmer.
Do you guys still have goats?
We have 2 little ones. We're not farmers. We're not goat farmers, but because at that point we had goats, and then my kids started to love them, and then they wanted to show them in fair. And then,
that's awesome.
The original 2 that I had are gone.
Okay.
But now we have other ones, and my son still loves goat milk.
That's awesome. It is delicious. I've had it too.
It's good. I made a little formula out of it because anyways, I have it on my blog, but because the breast milk is slightly different.
Okay.
Than the goat and the breast milk. So I added some black strap molasses because that has minerals, and we combined it, and so we were always either making formula or trying to pump. But I didn't. My son gained 3 pounds in 4 weeks. I just really wasn't making enough, and I mean, he was doing good when he came back from the hospital, but he was just he just spurted
it really
up.
helped.
So
that
was good, and then we kept that going for my daughter because she was little and I didn't make enough milk. But on my 3rd, I kept up on all those formulas, and I kept drinking the tea and taking the capsules. I made enough milk for him.
Wow. Like,
my hormones, like, I always tell people, like, you have to feed the uterus that's taking care of the baby, and when I did, I produced enough hormones that he never knew how to take a bottle, which was frustrating because he wanted to go somewhere because he never had to. I had so much milk. He was so chubby.
Wow.
So amazing the things that you learn.
That is amazing. But I love, though, that each time you're able to implement different things and it was like, it was a perfect storm in a good way on that aspect, which is really cool. Yeah. I really love that.
Well, and I started noticing that the cramps that I used to always have, because my cycle would start 6 weeks after I had my babies.
Okay.
My sister had like a year with no cycle.
Oh, that's dreamy.
I had a baby.
That's dreamy.
Seriously. I'm like, can I not catch a break? Like, I keep hearing these people, like, at least 6 months. I got 6 to 8 weeks after each child.
Wow.
And my cycle would start again. But I started noticing that it wasn't as bad.
Really?
I was like, I kept drinking the tea. And the stuff I was reading online was true.
Yeah.
So, and fixing your hormones, because it's not just if you're going to have babies, it's before you have babies and it's after you have babies, because we all have to have the hormones.
Totally. So right now, kind of what's your regimen? Do you still take the red raspberry leaf?
Yeah, I do.
That's awesome. I ordered some. I'm excited to start it.
Yeah, I do.
Because I need some regulating.
Depending on, for a while, so there's 3 different things that now I don't drink the tea as much.
Okay.
Now I do capsules. I got the 4 kids, so it's just something I can grab.
Yeah.
Put in a little Ziploc bag and stick in my pocket, and as I'm running to wherever, I can take a couple here or there. Or take some in the morning and take some at night.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you feel like that's helped kind of regulate your body a bit, and that's amazing.
Well, because I don't think I could have functioned with kids when you just shut down for days. It hurts.
Yeah. Oh, big time. It does. Like that. I'm like, when I'm on my period, I literally am like, sorry, family, I'm out for 2 days. Like, husband takes over, and it's not fun. I don't enjoy that.
No, it was extremely painful for me. I remember missing classes. Just missing And I remember just a couple of times just sitting there and just crying and crying. And my sister would come by and, you okay? I'm like, and she's like, it's happening again. And you know, and she had a cycle, but it wasn't, she didn't have a problem. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, that not everyone, I mean, everyone needs to help their hormones no matter what, but mine was extremely painful, and we were able to work through it. And so now I've gone on, and everyone's on Amazon, and I look at the reviews on there on red raspberry leaf, and you read through, and people are saying, hey, I had a cycle for a month. I would bleed for a whole month.
That's so scary.
And she's like, and I started, you know, this red raspberry leaf, and I just started, you know, taking 6 capsules a day. And these are from people that aren't me. And I'm just like, yeah, this is amazing.
That's awesome. I went through and read a lot of the reviews too, and I was like, yeah, sign me up. I need to try this.
Yeah.
Like anything. And I love that it's just a natural option too. Like that's a real big plus for me right there.
Yeah, and you know, there's 2 other formulas. I had a friend, she would come and drop off her daughter at school, and she was in so much pain. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And she was telling me about her hemorrhaging. She was like, her cycles and how bad they were, and that she was passing blood clots the size of her fist.
Wow.
And the doctor's like, you know, we can take your uterus out. She's like, but I'm not done. I'm not done having babies. Can you help? And he's like, no, there's nothing we can do. And I told her about red raspberry leaf, and she's like, oh. I'm like, you should just read the reviews, because not everybody wants to believe just one person, you know. And I was like, just try it, you know. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll think about it. And she came back the following month, and she was so sick. She's like, okay, I gotta try something.
Yeah.
She said, I just went to because it was so bad this time, I went to my doctor, and he said, they're gonna take out my uterus because I have endometriosis, and I'm just bleeding way too much. She's like, so I'll try anything. So I was like, okay. I said, there's 2 formulas that I would suggest. And she's like, I'm just gonna do one for now. And so she did it, and she came back the following month and said, hey, it worked. Wow. She's like, instead of being sick for a whole week, I was only sick for a day. She's like, but do you have a second formula that one, you know? And yeah, she's like, I wasn't blood clotting. She's like, I wasn't clotting, and I didn't have to go to the hospital this time. Like, you know, she's like, Midol stopped working for me because I've used it since forever. She's like, and it doesn't work anymore. So if I'm in a lot of pain, I have to go to the hospital for them to take care of me. Yeah. She's like, is there anything else I can take? And I was like, yeah, the second formula I was telling you about. I like to follow a guy called Dr. Christopher. Okay. He's an herbalist. Nice. And he has 2 formulas that I like. She had endometriosis, so I told her to try the female reproductive. And she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I tell people, I said, the red raspberry leaf is like a B12 shot for your uterus. Okay. Like it's like a boost. It's the boost it needs, and it can take care of most of it. And I was like, but if you want a multivitamin for your uterus, you need to take either his female reproductive or his hormonal changes. Yeah. Okay. So depending on the symptoms, I take the hormonal changes because I don't have endometriosis. Okay. But I still need some help with my, you know, if I don't take them, I still cramp. Yeah. But if I take them, usually my cycle goes through and I don't even. Wow. But that's a huge difference. That's amazing. She got on the female reproductive. She did 6 a day of each, and she came back the following month. She's like, I didn't even know it was coming. She's like, I went into the bathroom. I was like, my cycle. She's like, I'm not cramping. Yeah. Nothing. Wow. And we started homeschooling, so I hadn't seen her in a while, and I talked to her a year later. I was like, hey, are you still staying up with that? She's like, yeah, it's a miracle. She's like, I never had to take my uterus out, and, you know, and there's no guarantees. Some people might still, but one day even is better than the whole week that she was out. Yeah. That's amazing. But I mean, the fact that she was able to not even, you know, that was able to function and live life is huge. Yeah. That's amazing. You know, and I think I always say you have to hit something harder than it's hitting you. So if you're in that much pain, she took 6 capsules of each. She was able to dial back. Yeah. After she got things under control. But you know, some people are like, oh, you know, I tried it for a week and it didn't work for me. Yeah. And I'm like, you'll stay on medication for years and years, but you won't try it longer than a week. Like, it can't help you. Like, herbs are soft and gentle, and they help the uterus. They don't force anything. Yeah. It's not a chemical, you know, reaction that just stops. And that's the thing about herbs is it helps the uterus and nourishes it. Yeah. I think that's great advice, though, too. I think a lot of times we're so quick to jump into something and be like, oh, yeah, this is going to help, and then not
actually sticking with it or following through on the plan. And so actually giving it a good effort and seeing how it can help. So I love that. I love you sharing a story about just getting regulated and looking into our hormones, because you're totally right. That's where it starts. And I think a lot of us just don't even realize that is just a big part of the whole fertility journey and the aftermath and everything. And so
it is. And it's
thank
a
you
big
so much for sharing all of that.
Part of the whole journey.
Yeah, it is. Big
You
time.
know, I mean, what if my mom would have started me on that before my cycle started? I wouldn't have, you know.
Yeah.
They always say that plants are just a food. We eat lettuce and it's a food. Red raspberry leaf is like, you eat the raspberries and it's just a leaf and you make a tea out of it. It's a food, but it has the right chemical constituents, the calcium and the different things that the uterus is begging for. And so just take it as like a multivitamin.
Totally.
Just, you know, and so it's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I love that.
they're super soft and gentle, so.
Oh, you're amazing, Celeste. I appreciate you so much sharing your journey and being so vulnerable and open. I know that's not the easiest to do, but I just appreciate you sharing what you've learned and how you've grown through that experience and how it's benefited and everything. And I appreciate you sharing because it's benefited my life. And I know it will help others. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? Or
I think motherhood is the best thing in the world. And I would say, one thing I want to say was, you know, I think everyone struggles through, and some people don't get the chance to get pregnant. And not everything fixes it for everyone. And I have a sister she passed away, but she had so many miscarriages, and she never got the chance to be a mom. But the motherhood, it reaches more than just our hormones. Motherhood is about those we nourish, and she was that person for my kids. And so for the moms out there that they're like, if they never get pregnant or it's a really hard road, you know, they call it a grandmother. She didn't birth my kids, but she's still mothering my kids. And she's still nourishing them and loving them. And that comes from the aunts, and that comes from the young and the old. And I think motherhood needs to branch out and realize that we all get to be a part of that. And it is heartbreaking for those who want it so bad. And my sister did, and it never came about, but she poured all that mothering and that loving into everybody around her. And my kids still say she was their favorite aunt. And so for all the heartbroken moms out there that are really struggling, you don't miss out on motherhood because there's so many around you that need you. So
true.
I would say that.
Oh, Celeste, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Motherhood is all of us in whatever phase of life that we're in.
It is. And you're right. We can find those opportunities to be mothers to everyone around us. And I think that sometimes when we're in the midst of wanting to get pregnant or trying those things, like sometimes we forget those moments where we can be mother already with where we're at. And that's beautiful.
My son had a school teacher, and she never got married, and she just mothered those kids. You know, and he still was like, oh, she's the sweetest. And we have so many different opportunities.
We do.
But that longing to be a mom really goes deep.
Yeah, it does.
And we all have to deal with it in a different way. We all have a little different trauma to deal with it. And that could be in the journey of the pregnancy, that could be in the journey before the pregnancy. And that could be all the stress as your kids grow up.
Yeah.
And so many people deal with loss, and so many people, but the journey is perfect because it makes us better, makes us more compassionate to each other.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I never really, you know, when you're young, you don't think, oh, you know, it brings the compassion out in you.
It does.
So
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Celeste. Yeah. You are the biggest sweetheart, and I am so grateful you're on here. If anyone wants to connect or reach out to you, is there a good spot for that?
Yeah, I could, I'll give you my email address or Instagram.
Perfect. I'll put it in the comments below.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, thank you so much, Celeste. Yeah. You are just the best, and I feel like we've all been so blessed being able to hear from your story and all that you've learned and shared. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us here at the Infertility Club. Don't forget, you got this. For more hope, support, and positivity, watch this next video.